we've got a very special guest with us today. We've got George Schofield. George, welcome.
Thank you.
Are you
Nice
ready to help rescue some retirements?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, then, so you mentioned a little something about retirement and what you felt you needed to do. It wasn't just getting the gold watch and stopping working. So how would you define retirement? Or I guess, would you give it some different definition?
Well, to tell you the truth, I would like to put the word retirement in the garbage disposal and turn it on the shriek,
Yeah.
because I think we are frequently trapped in language that doesn't serve us well anymore and actually isn't true anymore. So I began to think of the notion of release as opposed to retirement, which meant I was released to make a different series of decisions. My children no longer lived with me. I have 7 grandchildren and they have lives of their own. My wife's a professional woman, been a CEO, does a whole bunch of things. I needed to, one, not set it up in advance. In other words, I didn't have 5 goals that I was going to immediately go after. I gave myself a few months to say, okay, I'm going to wander around out there and I'm going to ask good questions. So actually, one of the things I would like our listeners to know is, and I say this over and over again, the quality of the question drives the quality of the answer. So for me, the great bozo question is, when can I retire? The smart question is, what would I like my life to be like, and who will I have to be to have that happen? It's a much harder question to ask, and it takes a while. But I found that if I gave myself time and wandered around and saw what other people were doing and tried some things I'd never tried before and read, and simply went out and practiced not being overbooked, which was not a bit, given my biography, was not a particularly easy thing to do. So I thought of myself as having training wheels, to tell you the truth, and I learned to ride in circles and across the yard and the rest of it like somebody with training wheels. And because I wanted to go from I don't know what I don't know to I know what I don't know. That was the huge leap for me. And then I could go after what I once I knew what I didn't know, I could go after it.
Okay. And you mentioned something there just briefly. I want to dig into it a little bit. You said, one purpose, and you didn't want to just have one thing, or maybe you even said like 5 or things like right away to do. But I know you've talked a lot about this whole idea of purpose, and not just having that one specific thing that you're just trying to look for your entire life. And once you find it, that's going to be good, but more of like multiple purposes. And I believe you have a term, you call it ponies on the track.
Right. And that was exactly what I ended up choosing to do. So understand, I had a whole banking career, and I was vice president in a major international bank. And then when my children went away, I went and got a second master's and a PhD. So I'm an organizational and a developmental psychologist. Oftentimes, developmental psychology means children. How does a 2-year-old get to be a great 4-year-old? I'm interested in how a 50-year-old turns into a fabulous 80-year-old. That's what a lot of my research and my writing has been about. So in my opinion, and this is all my opinion, folks, a lot of the literature out there suggests to people that how they're going to be happy and how they're going to be successful is to find their true purpose. Well, I think that's a trap, and I actually think it's a disservice, because what might look like my purpose at 65 might not be my purpose at 73. I don't want one. So I wanted to work on my outside activities. I decided that because I like to write, I would begin to write. I wanted to find a new way to engage with my grandchildren. There were a whole variety of things that I wanted to do. And so rather than having one great purpose in which I had to pay back because I set that whole aside and said, okay, I want to give back, but I raised my children by myself. I've been engaged all these years. It's not like I only worked. So paying back is a very different experience for me. I feel like I've been paying forward my whole life. So it's not that I don't want to pay. It's just that I, George, don't think that suddenly at 65, poof, I had the money, I could stop, and I needed to pay back. I think I've been paying forward all the way along with my children, with their friends, with how I've lived my life, with what I've been engaged with, whole variety of things. So what's important to understand is that I came to the conclusion that I would choose 5 or 6 things. And I wouldn't work on all of them every day. I wouldn't pay attention to them all every day. I would rotate. So imagine that you have a stable of 5 ponies, and you water them and you exercise them, but you don't do it the same way every day. And what I found was doing one thing, working on my book that NASDAQ picked up as a must read. I couldn't work on that full time, and I didn't want to work on that full time, but doing that stimulated me for doing volunteer work with kids. I've been reading to 3rd graders in an impoverished school, and that gave me energy to come back and do something else. And in my work, working with individuals and couples and their grown children, sometimes helping people in effect say, whoa, wait a minute. If the smart question isn't about my retirement, and the smart question is about what would I like my life to be like, and who will I have to be to have that happen, I got lots of energy from the other things, and I could come back and do that. And that in turn gave me energy for some of the other ponies on the track. So it's a more than a metaphor for me. It's a way of life that's really worked.
As always, if you want answers to your retirement questions, our contact information, calendar link are in the description. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you're notified every single week when we put out new content. And don't forget about our other YouTube channel, the Retirement Rescue Radio, which is from our podcast as well, where we do dive deeper into a lot of these categories in very long format style. So always trying to bring you content to empower you to live the retirement that you deserve.